This episode is brought to you by Pine Melon. Pine Melon is the farmer's market delivered right to your doorstep. But this isn't just any grocery delivery service. Pine Melon connects with local farmers, ranchers, and producers, meaning you're supporting local agriculture with every order. Save time and skip a grocery trip by ordering online now at pinemelon.com. Plus, if you use code CityCastDenver, you get $75 off your first delivery. Again, use code CityCastDenver to save $75 on your first grocery order at pinemelon.com. Today on CityCast Denver. For the first time since he took office last year, the mayor has failed. So why did voters say no to his affordable housing tax? And where will he go from here? Producer Paul Caroli joins me to break down the vote. Plus, we're talking trash and compost and recycling. And your thoughts on our scoop last week about some big new weed regulations on the horizon. Today is Tuesday, November 12th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Hey, Paul.
Hey, good morning, Bree.
Good morning. So we survived the snowstorm.
Yeah, I guess so. Barely.
There was a lot of stuff that was closed that I was surprised was closed, but something that was really funny was my son has clearly been listening. My 3.5-year-old son has been listening to us talk about Casa Bonita because he made some comment to me that he was in awareness that it was hard to get tickets.
Your 4-year-old son?
Yes, he's terrifyingly observant, the things that he's listening to us talk about. And I said, yeah, you're right. It is still, we haven't been able to get tickets again. And he goes, well, I think it's because it's a snow day and it closed. And this was last week.
It did close on Friday.
He was right.
Yeah.
I went and I looked at the Instagram and I was like, Montgomery, you are absolutely correct. Casa Bonita is closed today. That is not why we can't get tickets, but it is closed for snow. And he's like, he just knew it. But it just, I don't know.
Someday he'll be the host of this podcast.
He's terrifyingly observant of things happening in Denver. But I don't know. I was just thinking about this, and I know that you bumped into someone from Casa Bonita recently.
Yes.
And you actually have some real news.
I have an update on a story we talked about previously, the whole the union effort among the performers at Casa Bonita. I talked to our friend Joshua Emerson, stand-up comedian and performer at CB in the gorilla suit frequently, and his colleague both in the union effort and at CB, W.M. Riley Holmes, who's a working actor. And that's how I ran into him. Just the other day over the weekend, I was at this really cool event that the Immersive Denver, the Immersive Theater promotion group was putting on. It was like a showcase of a bunch of different local immersive theater troupes. Yeah. It was so good. I mean, that's a really interesting community. I love that stuff. But anyway, I ran into Riley Holmes and he told me that they have set a date for the vote. So November 22nd is when we'll know more about whether or not the performers have voted to unionize.
Officially unionize. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's coming up.
Coming up soon. But maybe more interesting, he told me a little bit about how management has been trying to stop them, anti-union tactics being deployed in the workplace.
I can't help but think about that like DVD commentary or whatever, or maybe it was like an interview with Trey and Matt where they were making fun of the writer's strike.
Yeah, a little bit disrespectful.
Yeah, which I mean, their whole thing is being a little bit disrespectful. It just felt weird in the context of them now being a different kind of boss, but yeah, how did management react? Well, or how did they say allegedly?
Yeah, well, Riley showed me some screenshots of emails. Apparently, what they're doing, at least so far, is they're sending one email per day from Casa Bonita management. It's unsigned emails and it's short messages. Each one is basically like a talking point, an anti-union talking point. So he showed me a few, and one of them I remember was like, if you vote to join the union, we are going to lose our opportunity to speak to you directly about your personal work needs. And it'll take a lot longer to address your specific needs. We'll have to talk to your union rep.
Wow.
If you want a raise, it'll take forever. It'll have to be at the end of negotiations, which can take months. Stuff like that.
The very ominous, though, the singular emails with singular talking points with no signature is very, as you're pointing out, it's a message they're sending.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what the rules are around like anti-union talk in workplaces like that. Something I might look into at some point. But to be honest, this didn't sound like as bad as what I've heard in some other workplaces is when there's anti-union, campaigns going on.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you hear about like hiring like, Pinkertons coming in, going undercover, like cracking down, trying to convince people one-on-one. Sometimes you hear about violence too, but nothing like that in this case, at least not yet.
I have never worked in a workplace where this has become a thing. I definitely have worked in workplaces where it could have been useful as like a retail worker that was, getting 25-cent raises or, you know what I mean? Or like cutting down our hours to 8 hours a week, but requiring us to be available 60, like interesting stuff. But I don't know. I mean, I think we've talked about this over the last couple of years. This is really a focus for a lot of Denver workplaces. Folks are thinking about their power as workers. And this story is just so fraught. It's Casa Bonita. We have so many feelings about it, but it is interesting to watch this process.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's not more rancorous in this workplace speaks to the fact that, we know in our hearts, everybody wants the best for Casa Bonita.
Yes.
Everybody wants it to be a great place, a healthy workplace, a great place to visit.
It's a dreamland for us. And I think that's a little bit of it too, is I personally want the workers to enjoy that dreamland too. And so it's, we've been literally talking about this since the show began. And it's been interesting to watch the evolutions. Yeah. So we'll continue to watch.
We can leave it there. Continue to not touch the gorilla. Please don't harass the employees. Please. That's one of their main complaints.
Yeah, just let them do their jobs and enjoy it from a distance. They are people. But November 22nd, we'll know more.
Yep.
Well, let's move on to our next story, which is why the mayor's affordable housing tax failed. 2R was on our ballots last week. Huge question. What do we know about the vote? How did Denver vote on this?
Well, I guess I feel like I should probably recap, just in case this is for some reason the very first time someone's hearing about this. 2R, the mayor's proposal, this is his latest big initiative. He's been in office for 2 years, almost 2 years. He went after homelessness. He's still working on that. This is his next big thing because this is the next big priority Denverites have for their city is we want more affordable housing. That's something people talk about all the time. So his idea was, what if we raise sales taxes by 0.5% in order to fund affordable housing? And as of this past weekend, on Saturday morning, actually, Mayor Johnston conceded that his proposal had failed. And I think they're still counting some votes, but right now it looks pretty tight, the vote. It was about 50.74% to 49.26%. Very tight, but that's about 5,000 votes.
That's still pretty close.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that says a lot.
Yeah, I mean, this
about
is
maybe how Denverites are conflicted about this.
I think so too. Everyone I talked to is conflicted about it because everyone feels the need. And Mayor Johnston said this in an interview with Denverite. They wrote an article about this too. They were like, the mayor said, everyone believes it's a problem. People aren't aligned on the solution.
Yes.
So I think that's where we're at now is like, why not this solution? What are other solutions?
Could there have been a better solution this time around? But I know it's hard to know exactly why this early on, but I know Denverite did a little bit of a breakdown looking at the possibilities. Do we know why maybe folks?
Everyone's got a different opinion about it. We talked about a lot of these reasons, but like Robin Kanich, who was on our show a few weeks ago talking about this, she's in this Denverite article. She's saying there's a number of very close observers engaged in the realm of housing who are very troubled by the lack of a plan. Mm-hmm. So that was the details of the where's the money going to get spent issue. Why don't we have more details, Mayor? I think a lot of people were feeling that. Like, he laid out specific areas, but he wasn't like going line by line, like this amount of money for this amount of money for that. We're going to build new housing. And Lisa Calderon, former mayoral candidate, she had similar issues in here as well. She was like, are people afraid that there's going to be public housing built in their backyards? Mm-hmm. Other people apparently weren't sure who the housing would be for. Would it be for like newcomers from Central South America? Would it be for people who are coming out of the mayor's all-in housing? The unhoused folks. Who's the housing for? Who's getting this help? For what? At what level?
These were the most interesting comments to me in Kyle Harris's piece in Denverite was the fears that folks had.
Yeah.
Fears around, like you said, Is it going to be built in my neighborhood? Who is it going to serve? Is it going to serve this influx of people? We don't know how people feel about that influx of people. Is it going, there's just so much. And the conversation around unhoused folks in Denver is very loaded. It's very fraught. It's very emotional. And so when you have to distill all that down into, do I want to pay for something? I can see why maybe folks were conflicted. But Kenich's point too about the lack of a plan, we talked about this a week or so ago. I think the mayor came on our show and said, here's 4 buckets essentially we could put this money into. But Robin, Kenich was saying that's still not enough granular detail for us to decide if this is the right way to go.
Yeah, basically.
And I thought, maybe Denverites I don't know. To me, the close vote says Denverites wanted to do this, but they weren't really sure if this was the right way.
Yeah. Another thing is something interesting when you look at the vote map. I feel like disproves one theory that we had.
What was the vote map like?
Well, we talked a lot before the vote about the fact that a sales tax is regressive, that poor people would pay the same as rich people. There would be no percentage increase the more wealthy you are. That's just the nature of a sales tax.
And when that happens, it impacts lower income folks more because they have less coming in.
Yes. So to me, looking at the vote map, what I'm seeing here is the no votes and the yes votes pretty much align with the inverted L in Denver. So the poorer neighborhoods on the west side and the north side tended to vote in favor of it.
Really?
So those were the people that would be disproportionately burdened by the tax, and yet they're supporting it, perhaps because they might be seeing also the benefits or hoping that they'd be the beneficiaries of the money. Whereas the wealthier areas in, say, the southeast, southwest, central, they were against it.
That's interesting to me. And I live in the inverted L, and I think there's a lot of public housing or affordable housing or housing that serves folks in different situations. I can see them on my blocks. I can see them in my neighborhood. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. And so maybe more people like me were like, yeah, we already know what this looks like.
Yeah.
So why not? But maybe folks who are still afraid of what that could look like said no.
Perhaps.
I don't know.
Another interesting thing here that I think that I want to just put my finger on and point out for the debate to come around this, affordable housing is a very ambiguous term.
Yes.
Some people, when you hear affordable housing, they think, of course I want my rent to be lower. I would like my housing to be more affordable. Mm-hmm. Some people think capital A, capital H, affordable housing, this is housing that the government subsidizes for people making specifically this level of the area median income, so to specifically support certain parts of the population.
And what I think a lot of folks would call the projects, right? This term that was used, it's not used anymore, but I'm thinking about how that term was used and weaponized, but then reclaimed by folks that lived in those, because I have friends that grew up in those types of housing situations. And it is interesting even how cities have changed the way these developments look, right? They've responded to folks being like, I don't want that in my neighborhood. But maybe if it looks more like what your neighborhood looks like, that's another way to look at it. But I can just see the negative connotations, especially coming out of the 90s, of what people think when they think affordable housing versus the reality of it looks like all different ways.
Yeah.
We don't always know what it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's so many different ways to do it, which was part of the mayor's problem, was there's so many ways to help people who are housing insecure. But I was kind of getting at the argument that you and I have over and over on this show about is a subsidy the best way to make housing more affordable, period, or would just be focusing on increasing the supply be more effective? Because that's the argument that you hear from some developers, not all developers. Yeah, the Apartment Association of Metro Denver they'd endorsed this measure.
Really?
Yeah, they did.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of their members probably were against it. Like Andrew Feinstein, he's quoted in the same Denverite piece we were talking about. He says, I don't think that overtaxing our citizenry to set up a new bureaucracy at the city is the pathway to creating more affordable housing. He would say that the city should make it easier for developers to build faster and in more places. Policies slowing down development worsen the crisis. It's a self-inflicted wound, he said. Just throwing more money at it is not going to solve the problem.
And he's a developer who's done some stuff in the area folks call Rhino. But also we know, I think from recent reporting, that he's bought some property in Bear Valley. He's really thinking about the city and what it looks like. And I imagine if he's trying to build, which we've heard not just from him, but from many folks, it is a difficult process. I would like to build more, but the red tape is too much.
Yeah.
It's too slow. It's,
And some of these people point at the affordable housing ordinance that Denver put on the books a couple of years ago that requires developers to set aside a certain proportion of units inside of a new building for quote unquote affordable housing for like people that have a certain percentage of the AMI, or to pay a fee into a fund that the city would then be able to use to build more affordable housing or support affordable housing.
I totally forgot about that.
I know. And
gosh.
this is the thing that we did just like 2 years ago. June 2022, we put this on the books.
Not long ago.
And some developers are pointing at that and they're saying that's why housing's so expensive, because developers don't want to build with this ordinance. So, I mean, this is all part of an ongoing conversation that I'm excited to have. I think a lot of people care about this, but so, yeah, I mean, We'll figure it out.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, we'll talk to the mayor again, I'm sure pretty soon, and we can ask him directly what he thinks is next, because I think, to me, that's the next big question. Okay, so now what?
Yeah, we know he's an obsessive.
This. Right.
He went after homelessness. He went after affordable housing. What do you think he's going to do?
I genuinely, I'm very curious. I don't know. We're going to have to ask him, because there's a lot to take in here. This episode is brought to you by the Arvada Center, because they are presenting a zany, fresh, funny fairy tale musical for the holidays, Once Upon a Mattress. This is a laugh-out-loud musical version of The Princess and the Pea, and it's showing from November 22nd through December 29th. Once Upon a Mattress presents a new kind of fairy tale princess who stays true to who she is and what makes her unique. It's got incredible music, tons of laughs, and plenty of fun for the whole family. The Arvada Center is also offering child's price tickets for kids starting ages 4 and up. Once Upon a Mattress just wrapped up a sold-out run on Broadway with the iconic Sutton Foster. Seriously, if you're a theater fan, this take on a modern classic should not be missed. Plan some holiday fun for yourself and the whole family now. Tickets are available at arvadacenter.org. That's arvadacenter.org. This episode is brought to you by Pine Melon. As the weather cools down, Pine Melon has everything you need to embrace fall. From peak season produce like apples, squash, and pears to seasonal decor like gourds and pumpkins, they've got you covered year-round. Pine Melon proudly partners with over 200 local farmers, ranchers, and producers across Colorado, delivering fresh, high-quality meats, baked goods, pantry staples, and more right to your door. No subscription needed. And that means you have access to same-day delivery in Denver and Boulder within a 2-hour window. Go to pinemelon.com to order locally sourced food today. Customers can use the code CityCastDenver at checkout for $35 off your first order of $75 or more. Join the movement today and support local makers and farmers at pinemelon.com. That's pinemelon.com.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
All right, we got another interesting story here.
About the city.
Yeah, a real meat and potatoes kind of story, finally, after the election.
Yes.
We get back to basics. The Department of Transportation and Infrastructure has got some new updates on how they're rolling out some changes to our composting and recycling programs.
I'm going to give the straightforward what is happening.
Tell me,
and
what's
then we
happening?
can talk more about it. Big changes. They're speeding up the rollout of compost bins. So as of right now, the plan was to get those compost bins, the green bins, out to all neighborhoods by the end of 2025. Well, they have sped that process up, and they are promising everybody who wants one will have a compost bin by March of next year. So that's one big thing.
Okay, that is big.
The other big thing is they're cutting back on recycling pickups and large item pickups. So they were weekly, and then now they're going to every other week. And large item pickup is going from every 4 weeks to every 9 weeks. So those are that's the big picture.
That's what you need to know.
What you need to know. That's what's changing.
Okay, why is this happening?
Well, so let's see, when did we went to this pay-as-you-throw trash collection service in January of 2023. Prior to that, recycling and trash were free. If you wanted to participate in compost, you had to pay. I was one of those people.
Right, yeah, same.
We changed this in January of 2023 to where recycling and compost are free, trash is what you're paying for, and where you see the difference is the size of bins you can get.
Yes.
And the motivation, I think, behind this was to say, hey, you could pay for the smallest amount of trash if you wanted. And then that just means that you are committing to using your recycling and compost more.
Right.
And it turns out people were not really necessarily doing that because recycling was, Mayor Johnson said the running of recycling trucks to not pick up that much recycling is having a negative impact on the environment.
Oh, so people weren't filling their bins?
People were not filling their bins enough for the recycling to be picked up every week, but they were running those trucks supposedly every week. And apparently, according to Joe Rubino at the Denver Post in this Denver Post article, the trucks were putting an extra 170,000 miles on their trucks and on the roads every year to make that happen. So
what a huge bureaucracy to try to adjust to like people's behaviors around something as like personal as trash and recycling.
Crux of the problem to me, Paul, right there is we did not have enough maybe preemptive education conversations. And they will say that they have been out doing that. But if you look at, I don't know, walk down my alley, people did not get that message.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that like bums me out is like, I am not optimistic about this at all based on the rollout so far of this pay as you throw. It has been an absolute nightmare for my household.
Tell me about it. What are you dealing with?
I mean, I've talked about it before, but they just stopped picking up our compost. When I paid for it, they picked it up. They stopped picking it up. There would be like a month would go by. And so we stopped composting about 6 months ago because
I'm sorry about that.
I am too, but it smelled so bad. Rotting food smelled so bad. We stopped composting because they were never picking it up. Now, does this mean maybe they start picking it up more because more neighborhoods are going to maybe be using the compost? God, I hope so. I would love to go back to composting. But as it stands now, and I think a big part of this, though, too, and they talk about this, is the workforce. They just don't have a full and complete. They don't have the trash service. Maybe isn't as adequate as it should because there aren't enough people doing this job. And I could see that because I get a note at least once a month that our trash pickup has been delayed. So just hang tight. It'll be in the next couple of days. And that to me says there's just not enough people doing this job.
I suspect a lot of people have very specific issues right now, like yours,
because
you've got this compost issue delay. My problem is they never gave me the smaller trash bin. I just still have the giant trash bin that I had 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I would love to be having the smaller one. I mean, I'm recycling and composting as normal, but like just bring it by, I'd be happy to start using it. Yeah.
And again, I think this maybe just goes back to the labor shortage problem that they're having. So I agree with you, Paul. This is a very neighborhood-specific, household-specific issue. I'm trying to be optimistic because I want this to work for us. I think it's an incredible undertaking by a city. But I also know, like you said, changing the habits of people is really, really difficult. And for some reason, my neighbors can't stop putting plastic toys in their recycling bins. Why? I don't know. I don't know where all these toys come from. But I can see where if I was the recycling guy, I'd be like, oh, God.
This again.
Here we go. You know what they always say, contaminating the entire load.
Yeah.
And that's where I wonder, did there need to be more back end stuff happening before we just rolled this out and prayed that people understood it?
I'll tell you one thing that's not helping. That Flash game they made on their website where you can like drag and drop stuff into that compost or recycling. That game ain't working.
No.
It's not a good game.
Just a bullet pointed list. Just a list. Just exactly what you should be putting and exactly what you should not be putting. We'll see.
I have a different idea. Black Ops. Send in special ops, house by house.
Investigate your trash. See what you're putting in there. Take it out on your lawn and just like piece it apart and be like, do you see this?
Name and shame.
Yeah. This does not belong. Guess what? I know you wanted to put pizza boxes in the compost because you used to be able to. Sorry, you can't now.
Neighbors, come and look at this person who put pizza boxes in the recycling.
Believe me.
No.
My neighbors would be like, well, whatever. Do whatever you want. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes by the end. Oh, also, I should note, if you are upset that they are taking recycling away to every other week and you are aren't people like putting bazillion Amazon boxes in the recycle? Aren't your recycle bins full? Mine is. But if yours
coming up.
If yours is full and you're like, hey, I can't have them every other week, they will give you another recycle bin for free or a larger one starting in April. So if you're still finding that you have a lot of recycling and you want to make sure that gets out, there is a solution for that. So I'll give them credit for that.
Great. Yeah. Well, listeners, I want to hear from you. I want to hear about your weird little specific recycling, compost, trash situation. If you've got a corner of the city where they're doing too much or doing too little in some way, I'm sure it'll be interesting for us, and I want to hear about it. Call in 720-500-5418.
Hot Trash Hotline, 720-500-5418.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What comes to mind when you hear the word gratitude? Maybe it's a daily practice, or maybe it feels hard to be grateful right now. Don't forget to give yourself some thanks by investing in your well-being. BetterHelp is the largest online therapy provider in the world, connecting you to qualified professionals via phone, video, or message chat. Let the gratitude flow. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% on your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
All right, let's move on. Our favorite time of the week where we get to hear from you, our brilliant and hilarious listeners, about things that you care about. So what have we got this week, Paul?
We have got a voicemail.
Hey, I just listened to you guys' last podcast, and you guys were alluding to maybe a little bit more of a specialized episode on the marijuana industry in Colorado, et cetera. One thing that I think that you guys didn't mention, I know there was psychosis stuff. I work at a hospital, and what we do see, and I was shocked by when I first learned about it, never heard about, was cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, which is basically just, nonstop vomiting that occurs for long-time marijuana smokers that, are probably using really heavy-duty THC concentrations in their weed. And then, I've never seen it, but of course, it can cause an electrolyte imbalance to the point where kidney failure can occur. And I've never seen that. And it's not that common, but I do see it every couple of weeks. There's a patient that just comes in, just all of a sudden can't stop vomiting. And we're talking for hours and hours and hours. And really the only relief is, essentially, getting the fluids back up, obviously, but then also, hot showers, for an hour or two. They'll just sit in there, because that's the really kind of one of the main ways to get relief. So anyway, just thought that'd be another interesting little tidbit if you guys ever end up starting or having an episode about that. Love your show. Thanks. Chris from Highlands Ranch. Bye.
Hey, thanks for calling in, Chris.
Shout out, we got a Highlands Ranch listener. Hey, yeah. Thank you.
So this has been such a fascination for me lately. Yeah. These negative effects of chronic marijuana use that Coloradans, I think, are slowly coming to see, maybe even faster than the rest of the country. What do you think about this?
I have to say it's something I've heard from my mother, ER nurse extraordinaire, Brooke. They call it cyclical vomiting, I think, colloquially. Huge concern for her because, when you work in an ER, you see the worst of the worst, right? So to me, that was always her take is this is what I see and it's not great. And I also think this is a conversation about post-legalization. A lot of folks, there's a big move towards sobriety in the alcohol space. I think a lot of folks have switched, essentially, and maybe marijuana is more their recreational thing, but then sometimes it's very easy as an addict myself to know that recreation can become habitual very quickly. And I just wonder if we're just not talking about it enough, or
that is what some of
the effects of you can smoke too much weed.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what some of the doctors were saying. I was reading about this in the New York Times, and the National Institute of Health have some studies on this cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome.
Yeah.
But they were it's hard for doctors to track it because people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about their use patterns. But apparently it's quite prevalent among heavy users.
I think it's kind of like that when you go to the doctor and you do the basic intake form, for primary care, I think about this, and they say, how many drinks do you have a week? I know a lot of people that are not telling the truth about how many drinks they have a week. Yeah. Also, it's a record of your health, and that record can impact your future. So I can see why people are not honest about it, whether they're not being honest with themselves about it or they're afraid to have a record of what their actual use looks like, which unfortunately then makes it harder for doctors to do their job, or figure out what's going on with you. So it's not for nothing. I mean, that is a real... I don't know. This is such an interesting evolution of this conversation. Mm-hmm. Again, when we talk about the effects of legalization, a lot of times we're talking about economics, or we're talking about social, different, how it impacts your neighborhood, or that kind of thing, or the ups and downs of the industry. But the health component, it's not that it's been ignored, but this is definitely shining a new light.
Yeah, I would say. Well, it's all connected to me because the economics has led people to like the industry to cater to these heavy users, and we've gotten these more and more potent products like shatter and wax, and like I know some people who are just like lost in this stuff. At least that's how it feels. Like,
right.
Oof.
She was like, what'd she say again?
Yeah. I don't know. I found that Senator Julie Gonzalez's comments on Friday, where she sort of teased a little bit of regulations that they're going to be working on this coming session, very interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
She said she wanted it to be regulated the same way that alcohol is regulated.
Much when we talk about alcohol,
which I thought was so interesting because then she talked about potency caps, and I was like, that's not how alcohol is regulated.
Alcohol, but I
thought about that all
Like
weekend.
the very other
it's not like we're banning Everclear in response to like drunk driving.
It's absolutely what we talk about all the time. How strong is this? Because we're a little bit more attuned to our thresholds for this thing because it has changed and evolved so much in the last couple of years in terms of potency. Again, like...
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Yeah, it's a really... Yeah, I don't know. This is something to think more about.
Categories.
How those
like
things
in
compare,
alcohol,
how we talk about them socially, and how we think about them on a health level.
The hard liquor,
certainly.
You kind of know what you're getting at. Although I guess there's.
I don't know. Now I'm just thinking so much about it.
I don't know. With beer,
this was a great comment.
10%, not going to get above that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from more medical professionals too. Just what is your direct experience with folks in this stuff?
Yeah, thanks again for calling in, Chris. If you have thoughts on weed and where Denver's at with weed after like almost 11 years of legalization, 720-500-5418. Leave us your name, leave us your neighborhood. We want to know what you think. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See you next time.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell Andrew Feinstein about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See ya.